baton. People have PR-24s, the side handle batons and stuff, baseball bats. Again, those are nice, but even the police, a lot of guys I know don't even like them because you have to strike, and they really aren't the best sticks, like to actually stick fight with. They only use them for pain compliance generally, so they're hitting like muscle areas and stuff. And if there's a crazy guy with a knife, and you'll see this if you see pictures or videos, there's a crazy guy with a knife and someone has a baton and they're trying to knock the knife out of their hand, or they have a taser and they're pointing it at them, there's always multiple other officers with their guns drawn at the bad guy. So then they're trying to take the guy out without having to kill him, but if he makes a move, they're all gonna have to unload with him. And even then, that's when the law enforcement officers will deploy these. They're only gonna use their taser if other people are right there with shotguns and handguns. So if someone's coming at me with a knife, I'm not gonna go, let me zap them and hopefully they learn their lesson, or let me pepper spray them and hopefully they can't see me for a second. So less lethal force options, really take it off the table for civilians, because you're either defending yourself or you're getting out of there. So the next one is lethal force options. Now, how many people carry a pocket knife? Raise your hand. Yeah, I saw one last night. There's 4 or 5. Okay, I like knives. I'm a big fan of them. But you guys have all heard that old saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So I don't know if you can see, it's the Indiana Jones scene where he shoots the guy with the sword. Did you guys know about that scene? Originally, he trained for weeks and weeks and months with the whip. He was going to disarm the guy and everything. But I guess he had food poisoning that week, and he was like, I can't do it. And he's like, he has a gun. Why doesn't he fucking just shoot him? And so they ended up using that scene. But anyways, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, but also don't bring a gun to a knife fight. And this is stuff we used to teach. Really close quarters. If I have a gun out, all it takes is my gun going off a couple degrees, and it's not going to make contact. It's not even going to hit the guy. But a knife up close can keep working. It doesn't run out of ammo, doesn't malfunction. It's not a jam, it's a malfunction. And up close, there's definitely a lot of advantages to knives. But I'm not going to get into knife stuff. On breaks, if you guys want to talk any more about it, we can.
But even if the gun runs out of ammo, you can still hit someone upside the head with it.
Right, but the baton would be a better striking instrument, and I don't even really want to do that. So I prefer guns. It's Dirty Harry with his gun. So I don't want anyone to answer necessarily who shot firearms or anything before, but between the two of these, this revolver, and these are real pictures too. So this revolver right here, or this big revolver, which one do you think actually kicks more? And actually, we'll do a raise of hands. Who here thinks the small one, the black one, if you shoot that gun, that one's going to kick more than the big one? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, if we are shooting the large one, who thinks that one's going to kick more, have more recoil? 1, 2, 3, 4? Okay. Actually, these are both chambered in .38 Special. And .38 Special is just a type of bullet. It's for revolvers. .38 Special, .357 Magnum's a bigger version of that. These are both .38 Specials. That's it. That's all they can shoot. So if the small gun is shooting the same bullet as the big gun, and that's actually the ankle gun I carry. It's a titanium alloy, nice small, super lightweight one. That's a 5-shot J-frame. This is a full-size 6 or 7 shot. They both shoot the same bullet. Well, that one's a lot lighter. And every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So when you're shooting the gun, the primer goes off, it ignites the powder, shoots the bullet out. The bullet's also pushing back on you. So if I have a lot more weight and mass to absorb it, it's actually going to kick less. So there's a gun that almost looks exactly like this, and it's silver, and then there's a wood grip. This is a nice soft rubber grip, but there's a real thin little wood grip on it, and they call it a Lady Smith. And people would come into our gun range all the time, girls, and they go, oh, I want to buy a Lady Smith, because it's a Lady Smith. And I would go, that fucking thing isn't fun to shoot at all, right? That little gun back there that you got a blister on your thumb? Not fun to shoot lightweight ones like this. They hurt. I had my ex-wife shoot that a couple times. 5 shots, it brought her to tears because it hurt so much in her hand. But it's a carry gun, so you always got to balance it out. So people would buy that little gun because they're like, well, I don't want a big one. I'm not going to. But if you're not going to carry it, why not get something bigger? Which we'll get into more in a second. But this is what happens is people who don't know anything about firearms end up feeling this right to make laws about guns and telling other people what they can and can't do with guns. Like in Arizona, they recently changed the law to where you can take firearms into places that serve alcohol. So restaurants, bars, stuff like that. Everyone's freaking out because they're like, oh my God, it's going to be fucking crazy. People are going to go nuts and start shooting everyone. Well, the people who already have that mindset are already going to be doing that stuff. The people who follow the laws and aren't idiots aren't going to do that. So everyone would say, oh, it's going to be horrible. Everyone's going to be shooting up the place. Well, it happened a couple months ago. Nothing's happened at all. And anyone who gets into gun stuff, this is actually what got me to like get into politics and stuff, is just learning about how crazy and dumb so much of this gun stuff is. Like the high capacity gun mag ban, which just one day they're like, you can't have a mag in a semi-automatic gun that holds more than 10 bullets. Like, who came up with that? There's no data to back it up. Just someone pulled that number out of their ass. And that went from 1994 to 2004. There's no data backing up it had any effect whatsoever on it. So then they let it sunset, and it came back, and everyone's like, oh, high-capacity mags. These are assault weapons and all this stuff, ARs, it's all horrible. It came back. None of the crime rate went back up or anything like that. California and a couple other places still have the law to where you have to have a 10-round mag, less bullets in your gun. But again, it doesn't show anything. And the bad guys can buy standard capacity mags, not high-cap mags. They can buy them from other states and bring them back to California and carry them illegally when they're going to rob people. But only the good guy is going to go, well, shit, I can't have a 13-round mag. I got to go buy a 10-round mag. So my point with this is, if you're going to start making choices about firearms, learn about it. So at least have the knowledge to learn about it. Have the knowledge before you make a decision on it. So how many guys have seen a gun like this, either in a movie or real life? An old school 1911. Awesome gun. They went out of vogue for a while. A lot of people said, oh, we don't like them and stuff. But a lot of guys have actually been bringing them back. Like I think LAPD SWAT was using them. The Marine Det 1, Detachment 1, MARSOC unit. They started going with a gun. They had Kimber specially build one. A lot of people are bringing these back, these 1911s. I'm not a big fan of them because it's an old school handgun where it's a metal grip, but the grip's actually screwed into it. And the grip is what they call, the magazine is what they call a single stack mag, where it's just one roll of bullets. So this one could have like 7 or 8 rounds in it. It's 45 ACP, which is a semi-automatic. We'll have a bullet chart in a second. But I just don't like it because it's real big and heavy, and you don't get that much capacity with it. It's also what they call a single action gun. You guys have ever seen the old cowboy movies where the guy would pull out his gun and shoot like this? Yes? Okay, and you ever see it in the movie where they go click? Right? That's single action then. So what they're doing is, like this hammer's down right now. If you inserted a magazine, chamber it around, when the action slides back, that hammer's going to get cocked. So it then is in single action mode. What single action means is when I press the trigger straight to the rear, that performs one function. It drops the hammer down. It performs one single function. The round then exits the barrel. It slides. It chambers another round. It kicks out the spent casing. If you guys watch Matrix, all the casings come flying out. That kicks out, and it chambers another bullet. And as it cycles, it recocks the hammer. So when this came out, old school cowboy guns, you always had to cock it each time. And then that last slide, this one has a hammer on it right here. Now, if I do this and actually have the gun in my hand in that position and I press the trigger to the rear, it's actually going to pull the hammer back with it. And then as it hits that certain point, it's going to release it and it's going to fire. And that would actually be called a double action trigger press. If I pull the hammer back, the trigger also goes back a little bit further, and it goes from like a 15-pound trigger press to like a 2-pound trigger press. So a lot of people who aren't familiar with guns, when they go out to the gun range, they get it and they cock it up here, which is very unsafe. You only do it when you're on range. And really, I wouldn't do it at all. That's why my revolver actually doesn't have a hammer on it at all. It's double action all the time. That way, when I'm drawing it, this hammer doesn't get snagged on anything maybe on the way out. Also, if that hammer gets jammed up with anything, the gun won't fire. So that's why I like the revolver without it, because it's one trigger pull. It always works. Single action on the 1911. This one has a safety. A lot of people are like, oh, certain guns don't have safeties. Glocks don't have safeties. I'll get to in a second. And they freak out. But revolvers don't have safeties. That was a new feature, and it really came out with this gun because when it would cock, it's now in single action mode, and basically it just took a real light press on that trigger for the hammer to come down. So they came up with a grip safety that's right here, that basically when you grip onto the gun, it disengages it. And there's also a thumb safety. Sometimes it's on both sides where there's a little lever right here, but it's actually on the opposite side of this. And so when you carry a 1911, they call it carrying it cocked and locked, which means chambered, cocked, hammer back, but locked the safety on. So then you had to train, when you draw it out of the holster, you have to disengage that safety as you're going on target. It's okay. It's not my favorite thing to do, but that's a 1911. Good gun. Go out to the gun range, practice with a whole bunch of different ones. Maybe this is the one you like. Kimber, Springfield Armory, they make these. Really good stuff. Now this is a SIG. Also, this could be an HK, Beretta, a whole bunch of other guns, but this one falls into the double action, single action category. A little different than revolver. What happens with this one is I insert a magazine, I chamber the round, and there's a lever on the other side that lets me sweep it with my thumb, and it safely drops the hammer down without discharging the firearm. What happens with this is my very first shot, when I press the trigger to the rear, it has to cock the hammer back, it then releases it, it fires, it then chambers the round. All your follow-up shots now become single action. So your very first trigger pull's double action, all the follow-up shots are single action. Then when you're done shooting, you have to decock it and put it back in your holster. The problem with this is people buy this gun and they don't practice that first shot because that first trigger press is really hard. They cock it, chamber it, load it, and they practice that at the range. Well, in real life, you might only get one shot off. So you want to practice with what it is. And the mindset behind this, too, is instead of having good training where your finger's always off the trigger until you're ready to fire, they came up with this idea of, well, let's make the trigger pull a little heavier. So that way, if the people are dumb and they're running around with their finger on the trigger, it's not 2 pounds and it accidentally goes off. It's like 12 pounds. So it's a little bit harder to do your first shot, but all your follow-up shots are easier.